Hello and welcome. My name is Alonda Carter and I am the recovering Hunbot. And this is season 1, episode 13 or 14 because I can't count and I don't remember of Hey Hun, You Woke Up. This podcast is brought to you on 10 different platforms, including Stitcher and iTunes. The video version is available on YouTube. Today, my friend Nicole joins me and we talk about the prosperity gospel in relation to multi-level marketing. Now, I'll be totally honest, our conversation kind of veers a little here and a little there, but given the state of the world right now, I don't think that's really any surprise. Join me as I chat with Nicole, and really this is just a nice organic conversation, starting out with the prosperity gospel, and then we kind of like weave around, so come with me.
Yes.
Oh,
Hi,
hey,
everyone.
Nicole. Thank you so much for joining. I know this is a wackadoo time for literally everyone. And we were going to talk about the prosperity gospel and we will touch on that, but I really think our conversation is going to be much more organic because there's a lot going on. There's just a lot going on. And so how can we not kind of interweave that? And right before I hit record, you said something that I mean, literally every time I walk my dogs, I'm like thinking about this. And that was like, this is like the perfect time for cults to start. And absolutely, because I keep thinking about what's going to happen afterwards in terms of that, and how are people going to twist this in that way? And that's the weirdo I am if I'm walking my dogs. These are my thoughts. But I do think it connects to the prosperity gospel too, because people might be looking at this that, people who are still working and doing well, like, see, I am doing well in God's eyes because I am being taken care of and everybody else is just a big fat sinner, So give me your thoughts on some of this stuff, girlfriend.
Okay, so this is not an academic take on the prosperity gospel in any way, shape, or form. We're going to Cliff's Notes this, and then we can talk about like some of the ways it's playing out. We can see it playing out now, ways it might play out. I think that'd be a really cool conversation. But it's so funny. Human beings are really good at taking a good idea to an extent where it becomes a really bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out there. So that's kind of what I think of when I think of the story of this prosperity gospel, because we have to go back to back in the day when the church was the Catholic Church, right? And I'm not talking about like present day Catholicism. I'm talking about, the early church. The idea was that the clergy would decide who was in and who was out in terms of salvation, right? Like it was very much from a top-down kind of perspective. And, you could give somebody, again, this is not an academic thing, you could give somebody a little money to try to buy your way into heaven, or, give somebody a little money to make your ancestor live in purgatory a little less long and be able to move on a little fast. I mean, there are all these ways you could kind of play the system, but ultimately it was really sort of a clergy down. They decided who was in and who was out. Well, okay, so the Reformation comes about, and you have this idea that the priesthood of all believers, we all are priests, in this idea. It isn't just a clergy and then the lay people. It's a priesthood of all believers, and nobody gets to say, it's just between you and God and you and the Bible, and you get to interpret everything the way that makes sense for you. And it isn't about the clergy saying who's in and who's out. Now, that's great. That opened up a lot of territory. There was a lot of freedom in that. It did transform some of the corrupt practices that were happening. Fantastic, wonderful. Problem is, human beings really like to know who's in and who's out. So we do. We love it.
Yes,
I mean, we talk about the MLM stuff. It's like as soon as you start to talk or ask questions or raise some questions about what's going on, or is this really working, or is anybody experiencing results from this, all of a sudden, boom, you're out. That's not tolerated. We like to have a clear sense of who's in and who's out. So if you've taken that away from the clergy, you have to figure out a way, well, how are we going to decide? We're still a part of a community. It's not like everybody just sort of went into their homes with their Bibles and that was that. You're still a part of a community. And so how are we going to decide who's in and who's out? So what it came to be was, again, this is not an academic sort of rundown of the prosperity gospel, but what it came to be was, if you showed signs of favor, wealth, health, those are kind of the biggest ones, right? Wealth and health is always what we're after. Again, why MLMs are rampant and
that
can
fits
appeal
right
to a
on
lot
in
of
with
people.
MLM, because MLMs are all
Wealth
about
and health.
Yeah.
Wealth and health. So anyways, so wealth and health became indicators that would tell you, okay, clearly God is favoring this person. Now, we can poke all sorts of holes in that, and it doesn't really make any sense, but it is what people started to use as a marker. Okay, so if you have a good fortune in business, if you have like a pretty good, decent family, you're probably in because God has favored you. Well, then, there's there's a book called The Protestant Work Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, right? And it talks about how this idea of, if you have health, if you have wealth, then you have God's favor. It means you're in. It's a signal to everybody else that you're in. You're part of God's elect. You're going to heaven. You're doing the Lord's work. That's why may be one of the biggest factors of why capitalism and this sort of insane work ethic really took root in the United States, because Protestantism took root here, and everybody had to prove it wasn't just like you stumbled into health and wealth and therefore you're blessed by God. No, you're going to work for health and wealth. You're going to work your ass off for it, and then that's going to prove to everybody that God has chosen you and that you're in. So people did, they worked their ass off, and it still happens to this day. People work their ass off, and there's that whole idea of, if you fail, you didn't work hard enough. And I think that the prosperity gospel ties in to that idea too. If you fail ever at anything, it's for no other reason than you just didn't work hard enough. There's a problem with your character. You're lazy. You clearly do not have God on your side. You need to get right with God. You need to, even the whole thing, I'm all over the place here, but even the whole idea of coming back to your why, I hear that as getting right with God or something, really getting yourself in order.
Your mindset, getting the right mindset.
Your mindset, getting the right mindset, right? It's like, clearly you're effed up, and that's why this isn't working out for you. So it's and there's no other, way to understand it. You talk a lot about having influence and having, if you already have 1 million Instagram followers, you could almost do anything and promote anything and be able to have a return on your investment in that way. But no. Somebody who has 1 Instagram follower and is trying to, hustle and do everything that they can try to do to boost their following and get traction in an MLM or any kind of a sales, they're just not working hard enough because they're not seeing results. And so they need to get their mindset, they need to come back to their why, they need to do all these things. So what ends up happening is that people become judged, like severely judged, for having lack of character, for having something seriously wrong in them, if things aren't working out for them. It will be interesting to see at this time, because we have some interesting stuff going on. Some people can work from home, right? And as everybody's sort of locking down, people who can work from home seem to be having some kind of steadiness in their life. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of societal divisions are created and what kind of judgments are created around this. I really do hope so sincerely that we take a look around us and we see how all of us are being affected and impacted, and we can poke some holes in the idea that if things aren't going well for you, that it's because of some moral failing on your part. sometimes shit goes down. It just does. And we're impacted by it. And it doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. You know, what did those categories even mean? I don't even know. But, you know, we all are impacted by wonderful things happening in our lives and horrible things happening in our lives. And it's just the way it is. So, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure where people are going to go with it, but we'll see. So that's my quick and dirty rundown of some prosperity gospel pieces.
Well, I mean, I really see so much of that going on right now. And it's interesting that you bring like, okay, because I work from home, not MLM. I always feel like I have to say that. And I know to my audience, I don't, but I still feel like that.
I work from home.
That I do.
Yeah, non-MLM.
Yeah. But it's not, but my husband's not working now. So it's not like, you know, so you still have obligations, but it's this whole idea of us, you know, coming together at this time and helping each other out. And like here in Houston, I talked about this last night when I did a live stream. You know, we're good when it comes to hurricanes. We know how to prepare for that. We know how to go out and help our neighbors. But now it's like, keep away from me. How do you help when you can't be together? It's so different. And, you know, taking it back to the prosperity gospel, I think there are going to be, I guess, some of the elite, if you will, that they will be looking at their position as that blessing from God, so to speak, as that they are doing the right things. And, you know, and I'm kind of freaked out too about, you know, hoarding this damn toilet paper. It's like, seriously. And now, okay, I'm always afraid of running out of toilet paper. I always. But now it's like I'm using less because I'm like paranoid I'm not going to have any. It's like, you know, so I think our lives are changing a lot. But one of the things that I think will happen is definitely remote working. I think companies are going to become open to that because they're going to need to reduce costs. One way is to not have all these office buildings that you're paying for the electricity and the this and the that and the everything, and be more flexible. And, you know, people aren't going to be able to afford daycare. I mean, it ripples into so many different things. So and then I worry about this, going back to kind of like the prosperity gospel and people who like follow like Quiverful and that sort of a thing, because people who've been homeschooling, you know, they know how to teach their kids at home. Most people don't do that, and most people are having to do that. So I keep thinking, like, are cults like that going to arise or become stronger? Going back to the Christian work ethic and all of that stuff, is that going to see a resurgence of that? And it makes me very uncomfortable at the thought of that. But at the same time, because me growing up, when my mom and dad had a restaurant, my parents weren't around a lot, and all I wanted was just my mom and dad to be. That's all I wanted. So I think it's great that, you know, parents can be with their kids. I know they're going to go nutty and wackadoo and all of that, but we have been going for a while now where families weren't spending a lot of time together because there was like running all over the place doing so much. So maybe in some weird way, some kind of a reset will help us figure out what are our real priorities. What is really, just like what we're having to deal with right now of like, what is it called? Like necessities, like, what is it? Not essential or non-essential, because that's what we're dealing here. Like, is this an essential thing you have to do, or is it non-essential? Like going and getting a haircut, that's non-essential. Getting groceries, that's essential.
It's essential, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just speaking personally, we've been having actually some really fun times as a family in all of this, and just slowing down and not having to run around so much and not be here and there and be so overscheduled. It's been weird. It's been a little uncomfortable for a minute, but it's also been kind of lovely when we kind of finish up whatever we're doing for the day. If Jesse's working on the bathroom remodel and I'm, you know, logging off from my at-home non-MLM work. And, you know, and then we just sort of walk upstairs, we make dinner, and then we say, you know, should we do a craft? Should we watch a movie? Like, you know, who knows what we are going to do, but it's kind of nice to not know and just sort of decide what we feel on the whim, rather than sort of having whatever our evening activity is be so scheduled out, and whether or not we want to do it at that given time, it's like we have to, we're so committed, overcommitted. And so so it's been lovely. Has that been your experience?
Well, I'm such a homebody anyway. I'm such an introvert. It's like, I mean, last Thursday was the last time I went out and interacted with the world, when I went to the grocery store. It's like, I
Yeah.
walk the dogs, I deal with my husband, and it's like, and that's about it. And I talk to people through social media, and a lot of times I'm doing research, or I'm working. So, I mean, I'm already someone who has, I guess, self-locked down a lot, if that's a thing, before all of this went on. But it's nice having my husband around, because he's someone, he likes to always be going, always be going. Always, always, always be going. Last weekend, he had to take some wine because somebody from the restaurant was getting married. So he took more wine for the wedding, and he stayed there at the wedding. He ended up staying overnight and everything. And I think that he stayed in San Antonio. He was in the hill country. And so that was like a little get together for him. And so he's all about these get togethers. And myself, I'm thinking, well, you'll drive up there. It's a couple of hours for the wedding, and then, maybe couple more hours for like hanging out, and then you'll come home. He never thought of it like that, because he's thinking of like having fun with everyone. So we are very different. So now the only time that he has gone to work was like for doing the inventory, but now he's home. Like he's in, his room is called the Richdom. That's what it is. I named it the Richdom. I even made a rock that says Richdom on it for him. So I do some hand painted rocks. Haven't done that in a while, but it's nice to be able to, like, in a little bit, we'll take the dogs for a walk or whatever. And, and he's being able to like work on some things, because he writes lists for fun. That's his entertainment. He has a list of every movie he's ever watched. He has a list about baseball. He has a list on music, and he likes doing that. I mean, I'm like, okay, but it's like, if
We all have our things.
Exactly. And I'm like, as long, his dad used to do the same thing, it's definitely like this trait. And I'm like, if you are happy doing that, knock yourself out, if that's what can fill your time. So he's being able to like focus on stuff that he normally doesn't focus on. So in a lot of ways, that whole slowing down, because we are forced to slow down. Now, the thing that I have seen a little bit on social media, I got a little pissed. I mean, imagine, I know, me getting heated about something. Just never happens. No
way.
But it's people who are doing like social media coaching for people who are in multi-level marketing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And, basically kind of like trying to coach them through this so that they can like build influence now, so people will take action later. And I'm thinking, okay, number one, let all of that go. Just let that go. It doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah.
None of that matters. And it's like, and I saw a little bit of a live this person did, and they got, and it was on Facebook, and it's not the same as super chat, like you do that in YouTube. It's like something else, but I'm like, oh, okay, somebody just sent them money. And I'm like, and this person doesn't need it. That person who sent it probably needs it more. And so I find that very disturbing, that people are, and what really bugs me is that they use religion.
Yeah.
And they use words, surrounding the Bible and stuff, all about this. And I'm sitting in the pit of my stomach. I am like, how dare you? Just how, to me, that is just so wrong, and it's dirty, and it's low. It's because you're trying to look like you're good, but you're really not. I mean, talk about wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah. Yes, there's so much, some people are just straight up outright about it. I saw a woman the other day talking about how Jesus put something on her heart to tell, so-and-so to join their team, and like all this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, that's like right out there. But, even just language that really focuses on, being there for your family. I mean, that's, to me, I know that seems pretty neutral to a lot of people, but I think it really is like religiously coded language. So it sort of cues people on this sort of, God and family.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even though the Bible has a whole lot of stuff about family that is very weird and doesn't necessarily support the idea of unconditional approval of family life. Um, Anyways, so so there's this cue, and prosperity, or contributing to the family, or all these things. I mean, I think that it does tug on something that for many people is pretty religiously rooted, like where for a lot of people who would go to Sunday school or hear sermons, or and I'm definitely talking from a more of a, I grew up Christian, I'm becoming Jewish now, but like, so grew up Christian, so I kind of know about these things. And to me, this is some coded language, because when did we talk most about family? When did we talk about the importance of family? It was regarding church. It was regarding religion and the importance of the family. And so I don't know. So I think a lot of times there is this kind of coded language. I wanted to mention something else about the prosperity gospel with regards to MLM. There is an idea too. I think this is my opinion, and maybe it's not a popular opinion. I think most people are very hard workers. I've met very few people in my life who are not hard workers. And maybe I'm just not meeting the right people. I don't know. I do think the vast majority of people are hard workers. I think most people have good intentions, and I think that's actually why we get in trouble with people who don't have good intentions, is because most people do. So we're used to dealing with that. And then when somebody comes around and has horrible intentions, we can't really, protect ourselves against it. It's very difficult to do that. So
And I
that's
don't
something
think
that's a
we
learned
recognize it.
behavior. No, we don't. No, because day to day, we can trust that the vast majority of people we come in contact with are good people, hard workers, good intentions, and not trying to screw us over. So, because people see themselves like that, because most people are, and so they rightfully see themselves like that. And then they're struck with this twisted narrative of the prosperity gospel, where so people work really hard to earn the health and the wealth in order to show that they're elect, right? So then it's sort of twisted and flipped on its head, and it's like, well, I know I'm good. I know I'm a hard worker. Clearly things will work out for me. There's no way that I can't win at this, because good people win. And I'm sorry to be a downer, but good people, I think in the long run, in a long view of history, right? Martin Luther King said the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice, and I do believe that. But I think and we could just look at Jesus. Things didn't work out too great for him. If you put Jesus up on a pedestal, if you consider Jesus a great prophet or your savior, or however you understand him, for individual people, it doesn't work out that way. Good, there's another great book. It's called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And the whole premise of that book isn't trying to explain why it happens. It just is taken as a given in that book that bad things are going to happen to good people. Good things are going to happen to bad people too. We see that all the damn time, and we get upset about it. But for some reason, it doesn't make us question that idea that if you're a good person, good things will always happen to you. No, good things will happen to you. Bad things will happen to you. It's all going to happen to you. And so one of the things I think the coding about this prosperity gospel that's often used, it's like, I know you're amazing. I know you're in the love bombing. I know you're going to kill it. You're going to rock this. It's going to be awesome. You're such a cool person. It's going to work out great for you because you're great. And how can you argue with that if you buy into that worldview that if you're a good person, things will work out for you? And just unfortunately, that's just not how it happens. And it sucks. And I wish it were different, but it isn't. We all know that. Just take a step back in your own life, if you're bristling at this, if you're saying, wait, are you saying that we shouldn't be good? No, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be good. Like, also try to be a horrible person. Very rarely can good people be horrible for very long. It just doesn't really work. So, just take a step back in your own life. I'm sure most of you out there are really great people, like really kind and loving people. Of course, you've done some shitty things in your life. We all have, but like, just take a step back and think about your life and about all the wonderful things that have happened to you. And then also think about all the crappy things that have happened to you. Some of them you contributed to, some of them you didn't have anything to do with, and they happened nonetheless. So I think the sooner we can get this, there's also this idea about when folks are sort of using this religious language and talking about they might talk about the plan God has. Maybe this is, they might not even use the word God. Sometimes they'll outright say, I think this might be the plan God has for you. Other times I hear them saying things like, maybe you're this person right now. Maybe you're struggling. Maybe you're just not really knowing where you want to go in life. And maybe you're not fulfilled right now, or maybe you're, this, that, or the other. And maybe this is just the thing for you. They might as well just put God in there. Maybe this is just the thing. This came around at just the right time. There's a reason you're seeing this. There's a reason that we're talking together right now. There's a reason you clicked on this thing. Okay, you may not use the word God, but if that isn't religious language, I don't know what is. So, so that's, and of course I just totally lost my point with all this, but, so I think that that's some kind of coding too around using religious language for the MLMs and digging into this idea of, here's where I was going with it. The idea of God's plan. So this is another thing about prosperity gospel, because the Protestants were really into the idea that everything was preordained by God, which means God planned it all out. Anything that happens, God already planned it out. I've heard this too. God already knows that this was going to happen. God already has this planned out for you. Do you want to just get in line with God's plan for you? Oh my gosh. Anyways, so the Protestants had this idea, and it was very much in line with this idea of prosperity being a signal of electness too, because God already preordained who's elected, who's not. It was already decided. So, so that's a fascinating thing. Catholicism, like, you could work for it. Like, Alicia could work for it. Although that caused anxiety, because are you working enough for it? Oh, we could talk about Martin Luther all the time. Martin Luther was a crazy person. He was called a scroop, which means that he would be in confession constantly. Because if he just had one like teeny little, he thought he was going to go to hell, and he was always confessing, always confessing. So the idea that he might put forward, or he might support an idea where you can't really work for your station, it's already been done, that might have eased his anxiety a little bit, right? So not to say that there wasn't some good things that came out of the Reformation. I'm not like, the Reformation shouldn't have ever happened. But you have a person who has extreme anxiety about they're doing enough. Oh my gosh, am I gonna, I had this horrible thought, I'm burning in hell. Oh, and they're freaking out all the time. They have this anxiety. It might be nice for them to know that it's all a plan, and they can just like pull back from it. It's all a plan. It's all been preordained. So you have this idea of it being preordained, and then, as we talked about, you have to figure out who was it that was elected. I mean, okay, so yeah, some people are chosen, some people aren't. It's all been preordained. Okay, fine. But now we need to know who has won this lottery, this God lottery, apparently, that we're in. So, so then you get into the prosperity piece. The issue is, when you're talking about this idea of a plan and God having planned all of this out, I think I just want people to take a step back when they're thinking about this. If I might just share a really troubling story from when I was a hospital chaplain. I was a hospital chaplain, and I would be called in to horrifying situations. And there was one night I was called down because a young girl was brought in, a very young girl who had been raped and beaten. Awful situation. As I was coming down, her family pastor Zoomed in, and I was like, that's fantastic. Like, his hair was in curlers. He had like, it was in like his night clothes. Like, but I was like, that's a good pastor, right? Who would just like swoop into this family emergency. So I just kind of stood outside. At that point, then my role became support. So if anybody needed water or tissues, if anybody was going to, I dealt with this a lot. If anybody was going to faint, I just needed to be close by so I could help to make sure they didn't have an impact on the ground, all these things. So I'm just kind of standing outside the curtained area, just being available. And I'm listening to the pastor talk to the family. And one of the things the pastor said was, this is all part of God's plan. I get that he was trying to say this to comfort the family who were probably thinking that God had abandoned them. I would have felt like God had abandoned me in that moment. I love the theological conversations about the presence and absence of God. It's very fascinating and wonderful, but I understand what he was trying to do, and it made me sick to my stomach still, right? Because to hear a pastor say that the beating and rape of a young girl was part of God's plan, I can't have anything to do with that God. That's a horrible God, right? So all of these things are of a piece. The idea of a plan, the idea of prosperity, predestination, and prosperity being used to be able to point to who was elect and who was not. All of these things are part of this web that I call the web of gross Christianity. And there's like a really very lovely forms of Christianity, and there are really nasty, disgusting forms of Christianity, and that's gross Christianity. Whenever I would introduce myself to people when I did identify as Christian, I would say, I'm a Christian, I'm not that kind of a Christian. And they would know exactly what I meant. And so here's what I want to suggest in this time, and I think this all kind of comes together. In this time, it isn't about God, like everything, God knows everything that's going to happen. That's also, I don't understand where free will falls in there. That's always been the problem with this, right? Where does free will is also a deep theological concept. So where does free will fall in if God is just like controlling everything? I do think that a more helpful model for people, especially in times like this, is to consider God not behind everything, sort of having laid it out like dominoes and then just going like this and knocking the dominoes over, but to consider this God or spirit or however you want to, whatever, the energy of the universe, I don't know, whatever you want to do with it, whatever word works for you, at the forefront of everything that's happening, trying to draw it towards some kind of goodness. So I think I do kind of feel like if we can start switching our minds, and I think that's something that you're doing. I see that happening with you. You were in this horrible situation. You could think that God planned for you to get screwed over by this MLM. That was God's plan. Or can you imagine this like wonderful spirit energy, God, universal energy, whatever you want to call it, drawing you forward from that experience to do some good in the world? That seems to be more of a life-giving, more of an opening, hopeful, kind of get our asses in gear to make an impact on the world, and to not say that our pain has been punishment from God, but to say that our pain could potentially be transformed into some kind of hope and comfort and change that would be beneficial to humanity. I've been lecturing now for a really long time, so I'm going to throw it back to you. Your thoughts about everything that I just like brain dumped onto this.
So all of that was beautiful, because myself, it's like, I'm not religious. Now I have a minor in theology. I've studied all kinds of religion. I have a master's in anthropology, all that stuff. I mean, it's like, I love studying belief systems. They just fascinate the hell out of me. It's like, why do you think like this? And how all the pieces fit together. I'm just enamored by all of that. But as you were talking, and now I had somewhere I was going, and that train got derailed. Isn't that funny how that happened? But
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I would have, and I've been raped myself. I would have a hard time if somebody said, "Oh, well, that was just a plan." Now, out of anything I've gone through in my life, and I would say that most people have gone through their lives, people do, I don't know, rise to the occasion, so to speak, pick themselves up in some way, and they may have to claw their way there. It may take a long time for some people because we're not going to respond in the same way. Just like right now with what we're going through, we're not responding to it in the same way with the way we experience anxiety. Some people are going out there and buying a crap load of toilet paper, and I'm like, WTF, you know? Other people are like, I'm going to push my MLM. I mean, it's like you don't know. So I don't want to say there's a right or a wrong way, because I don't think there is a right or a wrong way in this instance, because it's just the world gone mad. But I'm trying to figure out where I was going with this. So I'm just rambling.
Keep talking.
I'll
Keep talking. You'll get there. Keep talking.
I'll go somewhere eventually. But, I know what I was going to say. So the whole plan, the concept of, quote, God's plan. Well, within any multi-level marketing, there's always basically a plan that you follow. If you just follow these steps, you are going to be rewarded with wealth. Yeah. I've talked to so many people, and including myself, my own experience. I did all the steps for a very long time. I paid into the system a lot. But and the sick thing is, they'd be like, "Oh, you just didn't do it long enough. Should have kept at it. Yep. You just, if you would have just kept at it, that you're a quitter because you quit." What the hell is that?
Yeah, or did you really do it? Yeah, no, absolutely. And that to me too is some coded religious ass language. Because think about it. I've gone to church. I've been kind. I've been loving. I've supported my family. I've, why do I have cancer? Because some people get fucking cancer, because that's just the way it is, and it's just all of the things that there's just a fallacy about. We can do something to completely prevent any terrible thing happening to us, and we can't prevent terrible things happening to us. Not all of them, at least. I mean, some things, just use your brain, you can kind of prevent some stuff, but like it just doesn't work that way. And same with the MLM. There's never such a thing as following steps to get like this massive wealth. And of course we can look at the income disclosure statements to see the effectiveness of the program and the plan, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I love that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But also,
so I really appreciate you pointing that out.
Those people who are saying that, because it goes back to being indoctrinated into the MLM cult. Because to me, multi-level marketing overall, it's like one great big huge cult, and then there's just like these little different little ones, little bitty mini. It's all part of the same thing. They all function in the same way. You can call it something else. You can change the language. They all function the same way. It's not like, and everybody always wants to think theirs is different. Yeah, that's what that person said. That's what everybody thinks. That you think that until you don't. You think that until you finally go, maybe this isn't. Maybe this really is not working out, because it's not. And it wasn't meant to. But that whole plan thing, they'll just throw it. It goes back to, you didn't work hard enough. You didn't do it long enough. And going back to your stinking why, I just want to just bitch slap someone if they were to tell me to go back to my why. It's like,
I love it. Well, okay, so here's the deal. I just like a personal story. So I was valedictorian of my high school. I went to a great college. I went to a great grad school. Met a nice man, we settled down, got out of also great marks in grad school, did a lot of stuff in my community. I did the internships, I did got the job and had the baby. And I did, like, if you're talking about it, everything, did the whole thing. And where did I end up? I ended up with a broken marriage. I ended up, leaving an entire career, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. I ended up in the hospital because of mental and emotional exhaustion and depression. I ended up with a mound of student debt that I will probably die with. Thank you. And, all these things happen. Now, I'm sorry. I still as I'm even saying all of this stuff, because, and then a million more, even beyond that, wonderful things happened in my life following that. But the point of it is everybody will tell you that there's a plan. Everybody has that. And this can come back to our conversation about, this is a great time to start, because in any time of uncertainty, in any time where we're just not really quite sure what we should do, if we're really scared, then a couple of things can happen. Number one, you can be disabused of your notion that good things happen to good people. You can sort of step back and say, oh, I don't think that is something that really holds true all the time, the vast majority of the time. Okay, so that can happen, and you can kind of relax. You can start to have a lot more grace for the people in your life. You can become a terribly compassionate person. That can happen. Or you can say, I need a plan. I need just somebody to tell me that they know what to do. And if I just do the thing that they tell me to do, then everything will be okay. And that's why right now, like you said earlier, I wonder what kind of cults are going to pop up around. This is a really great time for people. If you're in the market to become a cult leader, now's the time to do it. Because I think people will be pretty receptive to that message. There are a lot of people who are freaked out. There's a lot of people who are so freaked out that they just want anybody. They won't fact check you. They won't, none of it. They won't care. They won't look you up. They won't even consider where you're coming from. They won't consider the impact it'll have long-term on their lives. If you will walk up to them and tell them that you have the answer, and if they just do this, this, and this, everything will be fine, then they'll take you up on it. So just, for budding cult leaders out there, aspiring cult leaders, there you go.
Well, yeah, and I mean, as you were saying that, but I'm also thinking of people in MLM, because then especially the people on top, or even the kind of the mid people that are trying to claw their way up to the top, they can leverage this as well, you can't trust, that a job will be around because you've seen what happened. But if you do this, and look, our supply chain is still up and running. You'll be able to get all the things you need. You just order it online and it will be delivered. It's auto shipped. It's fabulous. I think there may be people that are open to that. Now, the only problem is going to be those people who are open to it don't have money right now, or they're going to run out unless, we don't know really what's going to happen. And that's the whole thing, is that there's so much uncertainty. But I also saw there was one company, somebody, I can't remember who, I saw it on Instagram, someone I followed, but somebody who waived the joining fee. I think we're going to see a lot of things like that being waived, that you don't need to do that. And I even see them probably doing something with their personal volume and whatever, of having a time period where you don't need to do, doing something to get people in. Because people will definitely, there's a lot of people running around going, what am I going to do? I mean, we were talking about this earlier, is here in Houston, we have something like 13,000 restaurants. I mean, there's a bazillion restaurants here. All of those people, pretty much, most all of them, they don't have work, I mean, I think about if the little nail salons, they don't have work. Someone's a massage therapist. Well, you know what? You don't want to be around. There's just so many different things. And so people are going to be looking for that answer. And if that answer happens to be join Herbalife, join Amway, join Beachbody, I think that there will be some that will be more receptive. But it also goes back to, but how can you stay in it when you can't, when you don't have money yourself?
Right. Well, see how creative, waiving the fee is a great way to get started, right? To get people in. Yeah, it will be really interesting. I was looking at the COVID-19 like government website today, just to kind of like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, if any of us get sick in my house, like what should we do? And they have a lot of great, it was actually really fantastic information. I suggest anybody go and check it out about if somebody in your household does get sick, and where they kind of need to be, and the sanitary precautions that need to be taken. It was actually really lovely, and it answered a lot of questions for me, and it actually dissipated a lot of my concern. I mean, we're all very healthy in my household. I don't have much concern around it. However, there is still some there. So anyways, but on the website there was a whole thing about like scams, and like
Yeah.
how it's going to be a lot of scams and how to avoid scams. And I suggest everybody look at that, because we just talked about cults and we just talked about MLMs, but this is just like prime scam time. People who are out there ready to launch a scam are just into it. There's going to be, I mean, we've already seen a bunch of it. People saying that they have, cures. And there was some guy talking about the other day drinking bleach. There's like this whole community of
Yes.
people who drink bleach. Like, don't, please, like, let's just slow down. Let's listen to our scientists and our medical professionals. Let's go ahead and just take a step back, and let's not run after what crazy people or scam artists are selling right now, because this is prime scam time. And I was really impressed that I want to take a look at it again, that they included in terms of staying well during this time, how to avoid being scammed. And I thought that was fantastic. So good on them.
That is, well, maybe I'll do a video on that, of like how not to be scammed during this time, because
Yeah.
really honestly, I think people need to consider that. And I think what you said is so important, is that sometimes we do need to just slow down and take a breath. I know, like yesterday I was having like an anxiety attack, as I was in a meeting trying to do something. It's like my brain wasn't functioning. It's like I go through these waves of like, I obviously, no, who feels right in the head right now? I mean, do you feel right in the head? Uh,
No. I had mine this morning. I was like pacing and calling everybody I know, and I was like, what is happening? Yeah, it was wild.
and,
Thank God
and
for those friends who can kind of like talk us down.
well, and then, and because my genre is horror, and I love like watching post-apocalyptic type stuff, and so then my head starts going in all kinds of bizarre places, and I'm like, Alonda, stop it, just shut up, to refocus here, because I mean, you can get yourself all kinds of twisted, um
Alonda, turn off The Walking Dead, maybe watch some old reruns of Friends, like just bring you back down to
Excuse
the
me.
earth.
Well, that's why I put up like that thing about comedy movies today on my community tab, is like, people need to have a relief, but in terms of avoiding a scam, whether it is COVID-19 or MLM or whatever, take a step back, take a deep breath, try to refocus and readjust yourself. And you just froze on me, but it says it's still recording, so hopefully you'll pop back up. Otherwise I'll just keep rambling, unless it just pops off for me. I don't know. But if we take a step back and regain some clarity, because I think sometimes, just like what I can do in my head during all of this, is like just go on this trajectory that it is land of the cuckoo club. Once you do slow down, take that breath and start thinking, oh, she must have lost connections. Well, hopefully she'll come back on, and hopefully I'll remember to edit this. And if I don't, well, you're going to hear me rambling anyway. Well, like I was saying, I guess I'll talk to you since you're here and I'm here. If we do just slow down a little bit, and then try to think logically, try to think, does this make sense? I think it goes back to critical thinking. And I think that's something that I do worry about at this time of such stress, is if people are going to be thinking critically, or if they're going to kind of, that's going to shift for them. Okay, and she's back.
I just sent you an email. I was like, I think the internet gods like give us an unspecified time limit. And then they're like, you're done.
Yeah, I just kept on talking. So it was like, I went, I just kept going.
I heard some of it.
And I told
okay, fill me in. What did I miss?
Well, I don't know when you stopped hearing it. It's like, God knows. I mean, what I said, I don't remember. But I was talking about slowing down. Like, that sometimes, because I was talking about my mind, the trajectory where it can go when I get all wound up, because I can go to some places. But when you slow down and kind of refocus and think critically. But I think right now, this is at a time where people's critical thinking skills may be very thin, It's going to be hard for them because people want an answer.
Yep.
People want a time frame. We all do. We're human beings. We need a plan. We need a plan.
Yeah.
We need a plan.
Right.
We need a stinking plan, and there's no plan.
That's the kicker, right? We need a plan, but how well do plans work? I know. What are we going to do? Let's talk about what's been helpful to each of us. I think that, that might be, we were doing in my synagogue, we had online services last night, and they had a really cool function where at one point in the service, it automatically broke us out into twos, and we could just like chit chat with each other for a second and check in and see how things were going, and like what's been particularly difficult, but also, what's been sort of like helping us get through this. And so we had a time to share that, which was actually really lovely. So let's talk about that. Can we do that for just a second?
Why not?
What's working for you?
Oh, well, okay. One of my besties now is another YouTuber, Monica Sambita. She and I sit there and do like voice clips to each other, like all day long, about stuff, it's like all that. And it's so funny because it's like, as we learn more about each other, it's like, my gosh, we are so much alike. It was like same favorite movies. There's like so many things that's like, wow, we're scary, like so much alike. But it's also cool because then I know I can like just talk freely and not feel like, well, someone's going to judge me for what I'm going to say. Because sometimes in our talks, we may say some things that I wouldn't necessarily say to the world because, people may judge, and it might be out of frustration or just like whatever's going on. So for me, having that connection with her through YouTube has been really beautiful because it has helped me know like, oh, there's someone who gets me, someone who understands, someone who also does YouTube, someone who has been an MLM, someone who's dealing with a lot of things. And a lot of our background, we've gone through a lot of the same kinds of struggles too. So we've been able to really connect in that. And for me personally, that has been very helpful. The other thing I think that has helped me is my dogs. I mean, that might sound really goofy, but trying to remember, let's go outside a little bit more. Let me walk with you guys a little bit more. I mean, I know those are very simple things. And I guess the other thing, and I shared it with you, was the link to HelloFresh, because I was like, I don't want to be out around people. And, so having something come to me that I can like make some really great recipes from has been fabulous because it's also tasty. And, I'm not having to fight somebody over for a carrot. It's like the carrot comes to me.
And I have to say thank you for that. We're going to be making one of the recipes tonight. I don't know if you're at all sponsored by HelloFresh, but I'm going to say hashtag not sponsored as I'm saying this, but we made one recipe the other night and it was really fantastic. So thanks for sharing that link. But I think one thing you said that is really critical, and I think it also ties into our conversation about the scam, is that the stuff that'll really get us through right now is very simple. It's not making things more complicated. Making things more complicated right now is just going to have us running in circles. And sometimes we need to run in circles because we just need to burn off energy. I get it. I get that, because otherwise you're going to be in your head and you're going to be crazy and drive yourself nuts. However, the things that are really going to ultimately in the long run get you through it are those simple things, like having a connection with somebody with whom you can be totally uncensored because you share a very deep and mystical bond, and I totally see that with you, Monica. But so having that, and having pets, having a thing that that you're taking care of and that you love and that's giving you love and it's getting you outside. Nature is such, the rabbis at my shul are talking all the time about just get outside for just a minute, just look at a tree, just, because you'll like understand that the world is still spinning and, it's okay. And it's not falling apart right now. But I think that, and again, just to avoid these scams will make, a scammer will sell you something saying it's really simple, but ultimately it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of energy and a lot of running around on your part and a lot of twisting yourself up. And I think right now, ultimately, it's like simplify as much as possible. I think that's working for a lot of people. I too have those friends who are like, if I had a nickel for every time this week, I called a friend and said, am I bad for thinking of this? Am I just a bad person for thinking this? Or it's just like nobody else saying it, but everybody else is thinking it. And it's been so nice to be like, no, you're not a bad person for thinking that. I've thought that too. Yeah. And so, I mean, nothing like, nothing crazy, but just being like, this isn't making sense, is it? Like, am I a bad person for saying that this doesn't really seem to make any sense? And, anyways. And so, so that's been super helpful for me. And eating, exercising. I actually just, I don't know, there's a gal on YouTube who I really like named Rebecca Louise, and she does, she has like a little program, and I've never purchased her program before. It's not expensive. And I just finally was like, you know what, I'm going to purchase her program. And I've been doing that for the last like several days. I amped up my exercise, and it has been fantastic to just like move my body. It's cold in Minnesota right now. I can't really get outside. I don't like it to be cold. So I also don't like it to be hot. So I'm in a pickle. And when it comes to Minnesota, I have like 2 weeks where I can be outside. So, so anyways, but yeah, so, just getting kind of my blood pumping and has been really, really good for me. And then just staying, like you said, staying connected to people, just texting somebody or just like hopping on a Zoom or a Google Hangout or, whatever for FaceTimer or whatever. Just to say, hey, I have a friend, we're going to try to set up a Google Hangouts happy hour and just like be in our homes and sharing a glass of wine with each other and chit-chatting. And I think that that'll be really lovely. So, so yeah, but I think like it's the simple, basic things that are going to help us get through this and not go crazy. And yeah, and I hope that's helpful to some folks. I know people really want like some crazy wild things, for how to get through this and make it through. And there has to be some crazy wild thing, and there just isn't,
Well, I think that number one, we're all in this together. We're all, we're all experiencing this. So, I mean, to me, something that I try to think about is be just a little bit kinder, just to yourself and to others. I mean, something else that has been helpful to me, because I mean, I sometimes like I'll do a whole bunch of Insta stories sometimes where I'm just talking about, whatever. It's like, it's like, I don't have some grand plan on any of that, but, but I feel like maybe somebody is hearing something that I say and it's helpful to them. Using my community tab in that way, people, commenting on my videos and me being able to talk to them, that makes me feel connected too. And so I've really enjoyed that. And, I'm thinking of like doing some more live streams because I really do want to be there for people in some way, even if it's like, I don't have something fancy to do at all. I'm the most
Let's just hang out.
But yeah, I mean, I might just ramble about some weird thing. I even thought about, because I have this book, I'm not going to say if it's the right title, but I think it's like called The White Devil or something, or The Devil of the White City, but it's about a serial killer that was at the World's Fair in Chicago. And I'm like, maybe I could like read online to people. I mean, I know that sounds so weird, but
I love it. Story time.
Story time. I'm like, okay, come in. If you want to learn about it, I'll read it to you. I may stumble over some words, but I mean, I'm just trying to think of something where people feel like they can come to and just be with someone that they feel that they know, because I guess people have seen me in videos or heard my voice and it's like, okay, well, I connect to this chick for whatever reason. She's a little wackadoo, but but I mean,
that's so awesome.
I just am trying to think of how can I help people and also help myself too, I mean, because it's helpful for me to feel like I'm connecting to people. And I know people need that as well. So, so those are things that I've been thinking of doing that,
That'd
and
be cool.
maybe one day my husband will
Yeah.
come on and he'll talk about wine or something, I mean, just
That would be fun. Ooh, that'd be super fun too. I love it. I love it. You should read some kind of a horrific story and then your husband should pair it with a wine.
oh my gosh. Crime and wine.
That
There
would
we
be fun.
go. Crime and wine.
There you go. There
You
we
know
go.
what? There's a
I
thing
think my
right
partner
there
Jesse knows the people who do that. Yeah.
that they do what they do,
Uh-oh,
crime
let's
and
go.
wine. And
Yeah, I
you can,
love it. I think you should do it. I'd be on board for that.
yeah, well, we may not have the wine
Um,
on hand, but we could recommend the type of wine. How's that?
that's perfect. That's totally perfect. That's perfect. Um, uh, oh, do you still see me? Because I'm getting like a yellow
Yeah, but
bar.
you
You still
froze
got
a
me?
little
Okay,
while ago and then you pop back.
we're back. Oh, the other thing, but I think you should definitely do that because I would love to hear what he'd have to say. Like you'd share the story with him and then he'd be like, oh, that would pair with a spicy Zinfandel or like something. Or that's really a buttery Chardonnay. I don't know, whatever. But oh, one other thing that I've been doing too is just like taking a second. So I send a lot of emails in a day. So I work for a mental health group private practice, and so I'm constantly sending emails all day long. And one thing I've started to do is in my email, I just sort of at the end of it, I just say, hey, how you doing? Or if I have to call an insurance company or, whatever on the phone, I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I found that people are actually, how usually people will just be like, I'm fine. People are being really honest right now. And I like it.
I'm going to offer this because it's something that we've done, because my team, we're all remote anymore. We're all around the world. And I think it was like not this Friday, the Friday before, my manager started it and she like posted a picture of one of her dogs. And then so we all had like bring your pet to work day. And we were sharing pictures of our pets. Yesterday I found like a really horrible, corny joke and put it in there, like just doing little things and then we also shared like natural beauty things like around the world now of how things look so different, like Venice, how it looks so much different now without all the pollution. And and I think about those things. I'm like, and I go back to a reset. It's like maybe, and I've talked about my husband about this. I'm like, we can do better. We can do better with how we treat each other. We can do better with how we take care of the planet and what we do. We can all just be better. And so maybe we can take this time and really think about what can we do so that we can be just a little bit better.
Yeah, I love that. I really love. I want to look up those pictures too. What Venice looks like with all the pollution and then without the pollution. That sounds
Yeah,
fascinating.
it really
Yeah,
is.
I agree. I agree. Also, I want to just like suggest to people, if you do run out of toilet paper, there are always old T-shirts that you can cut up and then you can even wash it. I've been trying to get my family on board with this. They will not get on board. I've been like, for years, I've been saying, we'll just have a little trash can by the side of the toilet. And just for number one, we'll just use our piece of T-shirt, pop it in there, we'll wash it, it'll be fine. They are not buying it, but I feel like it could be a real good thing for the environment, a good thing for the pocketbook, but whatever. Hope springs eternal. I think I'll get them on my side at some point.
Well, I guess for number two, there's a washcloth, and then there's, you got to rinse that off.
Yep. There is the wash. There's always the washcloth.
I
Oh
mean,
gosh. There really is.
we will find a way. I think we definitely will find a way. I think we're going to find new ways, I definitely think that work is going to transform dramatically in terms of how we do work and how we work with each other, and being understanding if somebody has a sick parent, a sick child, or whatever, or they are run down, or maybe they're having a bad mental day, because all of our mental health right now is just taking a beating. And the thing is that there's not a single person on this planet that's not dealing with it, and we don't have someone to go to that's not impacted. We're all going to be messed up.
Yes.
Something else I've thought about is I'm just throwing this out there, and this is just Alonda's crazy talk. when schools do reopen, I'm kind of wondering, and even when we return to work, are we going to need to do, depending on the time frame, are we going to need to do something so that we're reintegrated into society, because we will have been away from others for so long, and it would be kind of a shock to the system. Now all of a sudden you're like in a classroom with 20 other people. It's like, are we going to do things to where it has to be a little bit smaller so that people can start feeling comfortable again with each other? Just things that I think about.
I think you're right. I think it would be, also just like, because I have a religious imagination, I think about it as in terms of sort of a ritual, a ceremony. Like that's something that naturally human beings sort of need. I think one of the challenges with all of this is that there really wasn't any kind of a ritual around shutting everything down. So I think that we just sort of zoomed. We had no transition. We had no kind of space to sort of like really wrap our minds around it. And I get it, but like, I think that's one of the reasons it's really hard for us. Human beings are really actually very good at transition. But
we didn't have a plan.
Notoriously not great. We didn't have a plan. There you go. The plan.
The plan.
And we didn't have a way, like in rituals, the point of ritual is that it frames what's going on and why it's, and the importance of it. And, you get all this as an anthropology major. So that it's so important. So I think so many of us were kind of like shoved into this situation, and we're just like, wait. That's how I was feeling earlier today and yesterday. I was just like, this isn't making sense. I just can't like make sense of this. If this is what this person's saying and then this person and this, I'm just like, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And so anyways, I think it would be a really great, I'm going to maybe start thinking about it, how to consider what a ritual for when this kind of comes to a close, or however it ends. I mean, they're sort of saying that this could be a cyclical kind of a thing. So, but maybe I guess the worst of it, or this time of severe isolation, what would it look like to come back together and honor what had happened and honor the challenges of it, and all of that kind of stuff, and then come back together and figure out what our new normal together will be like. I don't know what that would look like, but I'm gonna definitely start thinking about it for sure. Because I don't know what that's gonna be weird. I mean, for a lot of, maybe you and me, we're kind of in our homes all the time anyway. I almost feel, does it feel weird to you that it's not weirder for you right now? Like so many people are being so like, I'm just like, I'm like, crap, it doesn't feel that weird for me. Like I'm work from home anyway, and I don't leave my house a whole lot. Like it's been winter, so in Minnesota, so I really haven't left my house. And like, yeah. So
my car sometimes it will like, I won't drive it for weeks, because it's like, I just like walk somewhere. I mean, the biggest place I'll drive to, and it's not even a mile away, is like the grocery store, because and there's like a couple of other ones I could go to, but I'm like, oh, there's one that's literally like maybe a half a mile away, and I'm just it's right here. I don't know. I guess I'm like a nester. It's like, okay, it's like, this is my radius. It's like, I don't want to go outside of this. I have my little area. That's it. I'm good. I'll do everything that's here. If I have to go beyond that, no, not so interested.
You would fit very well in my family. Both my mom, my sister, and I are both the same way. And it's like, we love getting together with each other, but sometimes it can be challenging to get us out of our houses and be together. You're like, it's good. I'm good here.
Well, I kind of wonder, will more people become introverts in this way and be like, will that happen to people? Will they'll become like comfortable being alone, being isolated, that they won't want to reintegrate?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, so much of it is kind of inborn. I'd be interested, because my partner sounds like a lot like Rich, right? Rich, she's always running around. She wears me out. I have to sometimes just tell her, well, I did early on in our relationship. I said, you need to be comfortable with me canceling last minute, because she will have me running here and there. And finally I just run out of steam, and I'm like, I can't go to that last thing or the last two things that you planned for us. Like, I don't have anything in me anymore. And that's how she is. And she's always wanting to be with people. It's always, like, woo, woo, woo. And, I don't know what's going to happen for her. I'll report back to you. You keep me posted too. I don't know
Yeah,
what's going to
yeah.
go on.
I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think right now, like the challenge, like for my husband, and because I don't go with him when he sees the kids, because, and it goes back to my own background that, having wanted just to be around my parents and they weren't around, I don't want to interfere with that, because his kids are like, what, they're 12 and 13, or they're 12 and 13 right now. And so I want them to have that time with their dad. I don't want to be that woman that's like, just is like, hey, I mean, it's like, they don't want
right.
that. They really want to be around their dad. And I get that, and I respect that, and I honor that. I'm good, but for him not to be able to go and see the kids, I know it's so hard on him. Yes, you can do like little, videos like this and different things, but it's not the same as when he takes his son Trace to this, what's it called, Dragon's Lair or something, and Trace is like really good at playing like different games, and he spends all day there playing them like with adults, whatever they are. It's like these like role play type games or whatever, very complex games, and he's just like great at it. And he's not able to do that. And Grant is like real into aquariums, and so I guess it was last weekend or the weekend, a couple of weekends ago, he went and got Grant, and then he took him to the restaurant downtown called the Aquarium, which there is a huge aquarium. There's all kinds of really, really cool stuff there. And so, but he can't do those things, I mean, all he can do is like maybe like text them and maybe, like do like what we're doing, but that's not the same as because most of the time what they do where they have the best talks is driving around, because they live like an hour away from us. So if they go somewhere, well, then everything is in the car and there's just a lot of talking, and they don't have that time. So I know that's weighing heavily on him, but I think he is going to adjust. Like last night, both the boys were on my live, and I forget what Grant's little username was, and he was like, "Hey, it's Grant." And then people were saying hi to
So
Grant.
sweet. I love that. I love that.
And it's like, and they'll probably watch us some more if they know their dad's going to be on there. Now, granted, I might be talking about something like, I don't know if this is really child friendly. This is, about crime, but if you want to watch, okay.
Yeah. Hey,
this is what it is.
It'll be fun. They're 12 and 13. They're 12 and 13. They're worldly.
I think they can handle it. But
I think so too.
I just think, be creative. Be creative.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking about rituals, I think that we all will develop more of a ritual about washing our hands. I think that's going to be so much more of a focus,
Mm-hmm.
for so
That's
many
a
things.
good point. Yeah, there's been and just hand sanitizer and the whole thing. Yeah, I think it's and that's for the good. That's just basic. We should be good about that in public places. And yeah, and I just gotta say too, just in my normal life, I love to just, when I get home from whatever, I just love to wash my hands. As soon as I walk in the door, I'm like, ugh. And not because I'm a germaphobe, but because like, well, I see it in the sink as soon as I wash my hands coming in from the outside. The sink is like gray when I'm washing my hands. Like I literally feel the dirt and stuff on my hands. And so there's there's a real pleasure around that too. But yeah, I think it's a good thing to do before you leave the house, when you're coming back to the house, before you go into any place. Yeah, just go ahead. When you get to the restaurant, just go in the bathroom and wash your hands when you get there, and come back and place your order, or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, not right now, I know the restaurant, but just in general, living your life out there.
When I was a kid,
it's just good.
My parents had a restaurant, so we were always going out to different restaurants, and I always wanted to go into the bathrooms. I had a thing about going into the bathrooms, but I also had a thing about anything being on my hands. And so I was always like going in there to wash my hands. And I'm still that way. If anything feels like it's slightly sticky or off, I can't stand it. I can't take it. I'm like, and again, it's not that I'm a germaphobe and a total freak about anything, but it's like I will just get very uncomfortable if it feels like my hands are dirty.
Yes.
Or it might be
I
even mental.
The whole day that I was helping when we were doing the demo for the bathroom before all this got started, there's never a good time to have a baby, and there's never a good time to like have, start a home remodeling project. Anyways, so we started the bathroom remodel before all of this went down, and we're still in the midst of it. But anyways, the day of demo, I was being tortured all day long because it didn't matter how many times I washed my hands. They were always just dirty, and it was just disgusting. It was just uncomfortable, that just the grime and the dirt, and it was dry, and it was so gross. But
I get it.
But the point of it is like, no, we should be washing our hands. I think a big part of this too is like, so I was listening to the what was it called? The press conference that happened, right? So right before we came on to do this recording, I was listening to the press conference, and VP Pence said, which I thought was really good. He's like, look, here's the deal. Most people aren't even going to really, like, he had a staffer, I guess. Pence had a staffer who tested positive. And his experience was mild, like cold, like it just felt like he had a cold. And I'm not saying, please don't take this as, anything, saying that this will be your experience, so do come down with it. But I have two friends from synagogue who were tested positive. And then I have various family members who several weeks ago came down with something brutal. And I think that that's what they had, because it was like nothing they'd ever experienced before in their bodies. And it was just like, it was horrible. So I think that, but there aren't any tests, and at that point we didn't even really have it on our radar so much. So anyways, but one thing that VP Pence said was like, look, don't freak out. A lot of us are going to get it, and we're not even really going to have like, my best friend said, she goes, there was one night where my legs hurt so bad I cried a couple times, but then then there was the next day. And I was like, okay, great, good to know. So I think and my friends from synagogue were on the live stream of the service last night. It was really good to see their faces. So we're good. A lot of us are going to get it, and a lot of us aren't going to be terribly, horribly impacted by it. And I just was really thankful that he said that. He was like, look, just, we can all just kind of settle down a little bit. This isn't like, the plague. This isn't, something, they're not going to be covered in boils and, whatever. Our flesh isn't going to fall from our bones. Like, this is not what we're talking about here. And I appreciated that. I appreciated that. And I was very thankful for that. And I hope that people kind of listen to that, and also just know, like, okay, so yeah, we're staying inside. Yeah, maybe some of us need to go to the grocery store to pick up a few things. We're kind of, limiting, our contact with people, and we're washing our hands. We're practicing good hygiene, and that's really all you can do. It's really all you can do. Again, another scam alert. If somebody's telling you you can do this, that, and the other thing, and put this on you, and hold this crystal to your chest, and do that or the, it's like, no, I mean, it's not going to hurt you to hold a crystal to your chest. So if it makes you feel better, but like, don't pay over like $20 for it. So, just keep it simple, do the things you can. There's only so much we can do. And, even the scientists and our elected officials are letting us know, like, for the vast majority of us, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So, anyways, so I just appreciated that. I think, like, let's just, like you said earlier, take a step back, breathe. We'll get through this. It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
I think it will be. It's just like when your mind, and everybody's mind, is going to go reeling at one point into different weird little spots. Refocus, come back, and know that there are people who are in this with you, because we all are. That's the bottom line.
All are.
We all are.
I'm actually. We all are in this, and I'm actually really. I mean, it'll take a long time. My hope, as like a person who is a lover of science, that they will be able to get on top of this lack of tests issue. Because I think, ultimately, I think the best thing is that we all need to be tested. All of us need to be tested. And I think we'll realize that a lot more people than we thought have had this. And like I said, I have several family members who, before this was even on our radar, just right before, came down with something just really nasty that fits all the check boxes for what this is. It's something they never had experienced before. Again, real bad flu. Anyways, so I think we'll realize that more people than we thought have had this. Some of us are developing immunity at this time, but so anyways, that's my hope. So we can really get a sense of it. If we're only testing the people who are like at death's door, we're getting a very skewed
Yeah.
idea of what this is.
Yeah. Oh,
So.
one of the things that I'm hoping will come out of this, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, is simplifying our lives, because I think that we have, as a society, gotten too caught up in material things. I think about, for one, like all the beauty gurus, all the different things that they're unboxing all the time. It's like, how many stinking palettes do you need? I mean, really? It's like every time you fart, there's another palette. Do you need all that? It's like, let's step back. We don't need this glut of like fueling people to constantly buy everything. Maybe we could just like it just goes back to me, simpler. Just make everything simpler. Because I think the complexity of everything has been, and now that complexity has been taken away, people don't know how to respond. Simple lives with your kids, simple life with yourself, just simplify, and find enjoyment in those simple things, like going out, what you said earlier, going out and looking at a tree, appreciating a tree. Sometimes it's just something that easy, but we as human beings, we overcomplicate everything. If we can possibly, we could do something in 3 steps. Oh no, we will put 24,
There you go.
Because we're going to look at all of this stuff.
No,
stop all that.
On my shopping list today is like a box of brownie mix, because my daughter said she had a lot of fun the other day making some brownies. And I was like, pulling out a brownie mix and just, adding some eggs and some oil and make it a tasty treat. Like, what is better than that? That's like really wonderful. And it's simple, and it's, so I think like, taking this time to just really consider that. I don't know how often we just sort of stop and think about what sounds just really wonderful and lovely to us, to just stop and enjoy for a minute. That would be really nice. I don't know. Like, I don't know, when everything gets kind of running and moving and grooving again, I don't know. Will we go back to the way things were? I mean, I'm bound to say yes, because that's kind of what we do, right? We forget. We love to forget, but
I mean, in Alonda's imagination,
we'll see.
One of the things that I thought of, it's like, because I go back to the whole work situation, and maybe we don't need all the stinking office buildings that we have. It's like, what if we did end up tearing those down and planting trees and doing more things for, again, taking care of the planet, like caring for things. Just like I said earlier, just being better. What if we did those things?
I completely agree with you. I think about it too in terms of, so I work at, in the mental health industry, and right now everything we're doing is telehealth right now. And, time we'd really have to wrangle with insurance to get telehealth covered. And now it is being covered. And I'm not saying that that's always appropriate. Of course, it's wonderful to be in somebody's physical presence, for sure. There's a lot to be gained by that, especially in a therapeutic setting. But also, this has actually been working out after a couple, 2-3 days of people trying to like find their new normal and using the technology and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, I'm cool now. Like, we're just moving on with telehealth. Most of my clients are staying on, it's moving and grooving. And we are very adaptable. We're incredibly adaptable. And so, so that's working out really well. But I always have thought that too. I'm like, when I talk to somebody who does go into an office and work, and I'm like, why do you have to?
Yeah.
And I'm like, can you work from home? And they're like, well, no, they require me to come in. And I was like,
yeah. that whole requirement,
Bye.
that requirement is going to, and I think an educational system will definitely transform, and maybe people will actually respect the background that I have in instructional design, because
Yay!
everybody's having to figure out what the hell to do when it comes to all of that. Something else I'd love to see, that let's just say that, yeah, okay, we're going to tear down these office buildings, people are going to work from home, is planting community gardens where we have fresh vegetables right here, just doing different. I mean, I know I'm living in a little fantasy in my head, but I just think how beautiful that could be if we just started. It goes back to just being a little bit better, That's all. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
Oh,
we can hope, and I
yeah,
will.
we can,
And I will.
and we ourselves can be a little bit better. We can do things a little bit better.
Yeah.
Each one of us, even if it's none of that, each one of us can be a little bit better at how we do things. And that's about it. Well, I don't want to keep you much longer.
This is a good time to, yeah, I think that we've had a wonderful conversation, my dear. It was a blast, as always, to chit chat with you. We talked a little bit about prosperity gospel and the idea of a plan and religiously coded language, and we went all over the place. Wow.
But it comes back to, for me, it comes back to people taking care of themselves and each other, and being genuine and being true and being honest, and being, it goes back to being a little bit better, being good, and most people have a good heart, good intentions, all of that. But also, I think we do need to have that awareness that right now, at this time especially, there's going to be those people looking to take advantage of others. And I think if you see this in your community, then to me, it's like it's our duty to protect people from that in whatever way we can. And maybe that is just letting them know, I heard there's this scam, or there's this resource, like the resource that you talked about, providing that information to people, because then we're being just a little bit better.
Yeah. Yay. Yay to being a little bit better. Yay. Sounds good. Thank you, Alonda. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for spending time with me. And we'll do this again. I know we'll come up with something else to talk about, because I always have a great time with you. So have a fabulous rest of your day. And thank you so much for your time. And, I'll see you in the comments. Thank you, Nicole, so very much for taking some time out of your day. Now, I know all of our days are a bit wonky right now. And after we met, Nicole was going to the store. So I really hope you were able to find what you were looking for. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard what Jeffree Star did, and I guess he's going to continue to do. And love him or hate him, I think this really sets the stage for kind of like what Nicole and I were talking about, of just, hashtag do better. But Jeffree is on Twitter. He is connecting with people who are in need, because he realizes that there's a lot of people out there that are, young mothers, or maybe you're single, maybe you don't even have a family, maybe you're just, alone, but there's just a lot of people who are in need. And being in California, he's seeing firsthand, that everything is shutting down and people are really struggling just to get by. So I think it's wonderful that he, as an influencer, had the wherewithal to think, what can I do to help? And that's kind of what I'm talking about how we as people, we can do better. We can do better to help each other through this time right now by just being nicer, just being kinder, and, not hoarding everything, for one. I really feel that his gesture really embodies the whole concept of do better, because we can help each other. We can think of other people. We can think of their situation and what we can possibly do just to help them so that they have an easier time. Now, right now, it's a frenzy out there. I mean, I think we've probably all seen that in terms of people just going nuts, shopping and just grabbing everything. Right now, as a matter of fact, my husband ran to H-E-B because, I want to get a little bit more dog food, because yes, like you, I'm very uncomfortable with what's going around, because honestly, we don't have an end date. And like when Nicole and I were talking, there's not really a plan. It's like the plan is unfolding as this is all going down, and we're all trying to just kind of get through it together. But when you don't know, like, okay, well, 3 weeks and this is going to happen, when you don't have that time reference, it is a little bit of a challenge for us. So that's why I really think that we can just focus on more of us doing better for other human beings. I mean, really, maybe just think about this. Maybe we can get by with less. And what I mean by that is, do we really need to be on this buying frenzy in terms of consuming all of these different, like, just insert whatever brand, whatever product? And I just go back to the eyeshadow palettes. Do you always need to have a new eyeshadow palette, every other week when something comes out? Is that really necessary? And in my opinion, it's not. Is it necessary to be, going out to the clubs all the time? It's not. I think it really comes down to what we're all dealing with right now is it needed? Is it and right now we're all dealing with something about whether or not going out, going to the store, going somewhere, is that really needed? Do you really need to do that? Is that a critical type thing that needs to be done? Because if it's not critical, maybe you should just stay home. And maybe we can kind of take that thought that as we start to work towards getting back to what's going to be our new normal, and we're not there yet because we're still transitioning as we go through all of this, maybe we can stop and think, do I really need to buy that? Is that something that is it crucial? Do I really need that? I think we may need to just kind of rethink, what we are deciding that we think is so valuable, and just take a step back. And I know I might be kind of like talking like a dream, a utopia or whatever. And I'm not a Marxist. I've studied a lot of Marxism, but I'm not a Marxist or anything like that. But I just think that overall, we as people, we can just be better. We can be better at so many things. And it just starts with very simple things. Like today, we were walking the dogs and somebody was riding by on a bike, don't know this person, and they're just waving. And here we are in the fourth largest city, and it's like you're out in the country and they're just waving. Those gestures, I think, are really good. We can connect better with our neighbors, with our friends, with our family, just the other human beings on this planet. We can be better. And remember, change starts now.